Okay, so now I'm going to show you what we're using for my 7-year-old boy. He would be considered second grade. So we are using the new Sonlight K core. I know they're not called a core technically anymore. They're history, Bible, literature, but I still call them cores. So we're using the new K level, which is kindergarten basically, as suggested for, I believe, 5 to 6-year-olds. And so I am using this level with my 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds this year. So we are combining everyone on this core, and then my 9-year-old is using core D, and so my 7-year-old will be jumping in and doing some things with the older one as well, and staying at his level with reading and math. So this one is about exploring American history, and level D is also about intro to American history, and so that's why I bumped my older one up, and we're all going to study basically the same topics, just in depth in different places, so at different levels. All right, so when you purchase Sonlight, it does come with a weekly schedule. Again, it looks just like this. And so I read to them from a children's Bible. They memorize a verse, and then we read some books about history. Again, they're not really textbooks. And then we read some read-alouds. This is the children's Bible that they have me reading to them this year. And it's really kind of beefy. Like you read 2 or 3 passages a day, which is kind of a lot to get through. We do it at breakfast, and it takes most of breakfast. And then there's pretty good discussion questions. So this is what we do for Bible. And then for the memory verse, there is a CD you can listen to. We don't use the CD because I believe it's King James Version or something pretty advanced. We use a different version, a simpler version, and then I just write it on our marker board, and we go over them every day at breakfast. By the end of the week, they can always recite the verses. So then for history and geography, these are the books that I would read to them. We're doing Maps and Globes right now, which we've owned for years and I guess never really read. And it is actually a really good book. It talks about Christopher Columbus, and it's really cool how this is working out. We've done 1 week worth so far, and my son that's doing core D, he's reading about Christopher Columbus also. So it was nice that we really are all learning the same things. And then they do have these new books that are a little bit more like a textbook. These are made right by Sonlight, and they're like the spine. And so that's our first time really using something like that. But I think that they're going to love it with the bright colors and good information. So we have those, and then all of these good books to read through. Okay, so these are the read-alouds that you just read for fun, character building, adventure. And I guess I didn't really say yet in this video that we don't purchase our Sonlight cores new. I usually piece them together by buying off of sites like Better World Books, and then I just buy the manuals from Sonlight. Or I found someone recently where I've been buying her used kits every year when she's done. I just buy everything from her. So there are ways around it. You could also use the library. If you weren't really stuck on having the exact right book on the exact right week, you could work through the books and the questions, by getting them through the library system. But I just would encourage you, even if you go on Pinterest and just search for books to read to second graders, just reading aloud is the best thing that I've ever done with my kids. When we are all unhappy and grumpy and fighting, just sitting down with a book and them getting on my lap and snuggling on the couch, they're some of our best moments. And I just can't emphasize enough how much I think reading aloud is important and should really be a big part of your schooling, if you're asking my opinion. All right, and then back here we also have the read-alouds from Sonlight D, which that is for my 9-year-old, but my 7-year-old will be listening to most of those with us as well. All right, science. We are doing Science B from Sonlight, and we have tried some different science things and come back to Sonlight. So we didn't start this level B until over halfway through the year last year, and so we're just picking up where I left off last year and finishing that, and then we'll move on to another level. So I did not buy Science K to go with our level K work. And that's fine. You can mix and match however you want. So we will be learning we'll be reading these books and talking about those things. Just show you real quick here. We've already worked through this one. That's the part we did get done, and now we're moving on to the other ones this year. And so we'll be learning about magnets next. So I got this magnet kit. I will link to all these things. And then I also picked these up because we'll be studying human anatomy. And again, we're doing this with children from 3 to 7. And then my 9-year-old will be joining in as well. He is doing Science D on his own, but it is studying similar topics. And so he'll be using these things too, I'm sure, and jumping in. So we got the human organs tube, which is kind of creepy, but a fun way to learn. So I will link to all those things for you guys. And we might just go a little slower with science, not necessarily sticking to the schedule. It does have a daily schedule, just like everything else. And it has these worksheets that they do. So normally I just have the oldest kid write. This year will be my 7-year-old practicing his writing. I have him write the answers, and we try to see if the little kids can answer the questions first. If they can't, then I'll ask the older kids. And as far as the experiments, on Fridays, they have you normally read them a couple pages from this book, or when my 9-year-old was doing it with them, I would just have him read it, and then they can pick, you know, an experiment to do, which honestly, we don't do a lot of experiments. In the summers, sometimes we go back and try to make up for that and do more, but we haven't done a ton of experiments, and it's been fine. Okay, moving on. So for our basically learning to read, write, spelling, handwriting, vocabulary, grammar, all of that is combined into Logic of English Foundations. And my son is working through level C. So he was almost done with level C last year, and we didn't push at the end to do it. I really want to take my time. He's not reading fluently yet. He is reading, and he can read through a normal book, but he takes his time and sounds out almost every word still, and he's not very confident. So I'm not rushing him. We're going to finish up C this year, and then we'll move on to Foundations D. If you have questions about that, just let me know. They're wonderful programs. I have every level. We've used it since my oldest turned 4, and we've never tried anything else because it's worked wonderfully for us. And it has workbooks with it that I bought the PDFs of the workbooks, and I printed them off. So I do that for every kid. Works well for us having multiple kids going through it. Now with Sonlight, they also have readers, which are not in this schedule. They're a separate schedule. My 7-year-old is doing the grade 1 readers. So it's kind of nice with the younger grades, grades 3 and below. You can pick the readers to match your child's level, and they have placement tests. So instead of having to do readers with a certain level, you can pick. And so he's finishing up. These are the books he has left for the grade 1 readers that we didn't get through last year. And then he'll move on to the level 2 readers. So I'm going through this kind of fast. I hope it's not confusing. Just let me know if you have questions. And then for math, okay. My 9-year-old is doing some Montessori work with fractions, and my 7-year-old will be joining in with that, as well as probably my 5 and 6-year-olds too. With the younger kids, you start with these fraction materials, and they'll use these a little bit, but more so it'll be with these big ones. And so some of the lessons are basic enough that I'm going to start them with the younger kids, and then as it gets more advanced, I'll just phase them out. And he'll be continuing with basic addition and subtraction as well. And so I don't introduce new concepts all the time. More so I introduce a concept, and then most days he's just doing something to review that. So we really like wrap-ups. He uses those. So sometimes for that day, math might just be, hey, go grab your wrap-ups and run through 3 of them or something and show me that they're right. And then I really like worksheets like this. You can see this is from Scholastic. But any of these where they get to color a picture, I will often tell them, do 2 problems a day or do 3 problems a day or something, and they'll work the problems and color in the spots, and then at the end of the week or the month or whatever, they have this nice picture. So we do that. I make up little workbooks where I print off sheets, and it just keeps us on track, gives us something to do for practice on the days when I don't have time to do a whole new lesson with him. So that's what we're doing for math. And I think that about covers my 7-year-old.